Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Who Are You podcast. This is episode 167. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're always happy to have a new listener, a new watcher, any way you guys are checking out our content. If you guys want to see some more behind-the-scenes stuff, kind of keep up with the lifestyle of the Who Are You pod, make sure you guys give us a follow on all the social media. It's going to be at Who Are You pod from everything from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I guess we call it X nowadays. Whatever you guys would like to follow us on, feel free to give us a follow on there. And make sure you guys check out the YouTube channel. It's going to be at Who Are You Pod on there as well. You guys will be able to see more of our video sides of things here, some more behind the scene content, and more on the road stuff that we're going to be doing here soon. But today, I'm sitting down with a very, very special guest, a guy who really doesn't need an introduction. You guys have probably seen this gentleman's face on, News for Jax, his journalism, his work with the community, his work with JSO. Today, I'm sitting down with Mr. Vic Micolucci. I got it right, right?
You got it right.
There we go.
Connor Overbay.
Yes, sir. We were practicing before the podcast, but
okay.
Like I said, thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to come sit down with me today. It's a treat to get to meet someone who is as passionate about our city as I am. And like I said, welcome. If there's anything social media wise or anything you want to promote here in the beginning, feel free.
Oh, well, thank you, Connor. Happy to be here, just like you, born and raised in Jacksonville. It's such a privilege to be here. I feel like we're kind of the underdog city.
Yes, sir.
And I love seeing the growth. In fact, right before here, I was just meeting with some other friends with Mark Lamping, the president of the Jaguars. And I'll tell you, I was just walking out there smiling ear to ear, looking at what the future of is here in Jacksonville. Not 10, 15, 20 years down the road, but we're looking at 3 years down the road. This place is going to be even more awesome. And I love it. So...
Hey.
Yeah. But by the way, social media, I'm all things Jacksonville Sheriff's Office social media right now. I've been devoting almost everything to that. Every once in a while, I remember to put some personal stuff out there, but just under at Vic Micolucci.
I understand. You'll be tagged in the description and everything. And your Instagram is awesome. Like from all the travel that I see you've gotten to do, a good mix of things. I get a little jealous. I was like, there's a couple spots you went. I was like, dang. I was like, that's where I want to go.
Every once in a while, I go out and I have fun, but there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
I
a lot of meetings, a lot of not fun stuff, a lot of reading that goes on. With brief trips.
I understand.
Quick trips that go to cool places.
Hey, I totally understand. As I was saying, you are a very busy man. Like, just to go down the list of things that you kind of have your hands in. Obviously, reporter, journalist, you had that side of your things. You had your strategic communication executive with JSO, which is, like I said, I've been aware of you for a while, but as I was talking to you when you first came in here, I saw Tommy G came through Jacksonville, and I saw you sitting in the back seat, and I was like, oh, wait a second. I'm like, what's going on here? And it was cool to kind of see that other side of JSO, right? You get to see a deep dive in. I've had the chance to meet TK Waters a couple times as well. Great dude.
I love it. He sure is.
And it's awesome to see the humanization side of things, right? Because I feel like that's obviously that was your job for a while, is to show peel back that layer to show that, hey, everything you see on the news in certain areas is not always true. There may be more of a story to it. A lot of people during the COVID times were having issues with that whole thing there. And it's cool to see, TK actually show his personality and, see you guys be able to tell the story of Jacksonville. Because as you said, a lot of people think we're underdogs. Yeah. And I think Jacksonville's really... It's not even next up. We are becoming that city. It's cool to see what's going on with downtown Jacksonville. What's going on with the Jaguars, bringing that love and making downtown Jacksonville a place that people want to go to rather than avoid.
It's a really special place. And I'll tell you, I do get to travel a good bit. And every time I come home, I fly back into Jacksonville Airport. And I'm like, oh, it is nice here.
Oh, yeah.
It is nice here. I go to the beach out here, whether it's Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach, Jacksonville Beach, Ponte Vedra. I'm like, man, this beats a lot of the beaches that I've been to. Obviously, there's a lot of room for growth in this city, but there's so much promise, and we've come so far so long. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love to see it, and it's been an incredible opportunity to switch from telling people's stories through the news to being able to still tell stories through the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and I appreciate Sheriff Waters and his administration for having me and giving me these incredible opportunities to tell stories that hadn't been told before and to connect with our community on the next level.
Of course.
I feel like we, as a taxpayer-funded public service, as a law enforcement agency, need to connect with the people. We've got 3,800 employees at JSO. We have about 1 million people now that we serve. And that's just the residents, not including all the people that come for football games, for sporting events, for concerts, for vacation, visiting family members. So, the number is much higher. So we have to be the best at communicating with them.
Yes.
And that's a challenge every single day, is how do we reach these people? How do we get our message across? And how do we better serve them? Because I firmly believe that people should be able to have access to all the information. And obviously that's what Sheriff had in his vision, and that's why we were able to team up, and that's why, thankfully, he brought me on, and now I'm building a team, and grateful for that, and blessed every day to be able to have a team of communicators and professionals that are really just trying to serve the public. Back in the day, you'd knock on doors, you'd have a loudspeaker, something like that. Now the way to do it is, as you know, Connor, through what you're doing digitally.
Yes, sir.
That's one way. You still got to get out there. You still got to knock on doors and pound the pavement and walk down the streets. But a big thing that we can do is digital. And just this weekend, we were able to get out vital information to one post like over 300,000 people.
Really?
Another one over 250,000 people and counting. And that's information that people might not have been able to get. And that's a great privilege to be able to have that platform, and we're continuing to try to grow that platform, which is why for the past year and change, that's been my sole focus, has just been growing the reach of JSO locally and nationally and internationally. And you brought up Tommy G. That was great. They reached out. Initially, somebody had told them no. And, I saw the email and I said, you know what? This guy's a little edgy.
Yeah.
And this is risky, but I watched his stuff and I studied it and had some conversations, and I think I was comfortable with him. He was comfortable with me, and he and his crew are professionals, and they do a good job, and they're great with connecting with people. And they weren't coming down to push any kind of agenda. They were coming down to be observers. And to look to see how things happen in Jacksonville. And we had the opportunity to let them ride with patrol, with the gang unit, with community problem response, talk to the sheriff, talk to our investigators, and just say, here it is. This is the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that that's something that's very important.
I totally agree.
We're using taxpayer money, right? We're tasked with protecting this city. And it's important to be able to show people what we actually do and what we deal with. And that's not always pretty. Policing is not always pretty. You're usually there on the worst day of somebody's life, or somebody in crisis, or somebody's going to go to jail. These are life-changing moments that our officers do day in and day out. And they've been doing it, for more than 100 years here. But now we have better resources to be able to tell their stories and to be able to help explain their side. And you might not necessarily still be a police fan or something like that, but at least you can see it through their eyes.
Of course.
And you can see their perspective. You have your own perspective. Everybody has their own perspective, right? You and I grew up differently. We went to different schools. We have different careers. So you're going to look at life a little bit differently than I am. But we're all still going for the same thing, right? We want to raise a family here. We want to feel safe. We want to be happy. We want to be healthy. And Tommy G gave us a great opportunity. 3-part series. I think probably if you add them together, we had over 5 million views.
Whew.
And
talking about growing the reach right there.
Yeah. And I read the comments, and some of them are very, very positive, including some people that said that they weren't traditionally law enforcement supporters, and there were some people that were very negative. And we don't shy away from that. You're not going to please everybody. But you can do it to build trust and to build transparency and to engage with the community and show them what you're doing in the community. And it's a great way to do that.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, even if people may not agree with the specific aspects, right? As you were saying, police work is usually a thankless job. A lot of the times. Yeah. As you were saying, people show up, or the police officer will show up on that person's worst day, or, maybe it's even the best day and something kind of goes wrong where, police have to get involved. But when it comes to being a police officer, right, I've been lucky enough to talk to a couple. I've had family members who are in New Jersey who were police officers for a while. And one of the main things he always told me was things can happen so quick. And that's the big thing that a lot of people, I don't think, really kind of conceptualize. Yeah. You walk up to a car, you don't know who's in that car. You don't know what they have in that car. You don't know what they're trying to get away from you, all that kind of stuff, where things can really take a matter of less than a second to change someone's life. One of the big things I was going to ask was, so when it comes to like getting that community outreach, right, what would you say is one of the major pushbacks that you guys would get commonly?
Internally or externally?
Like in the community, so I would say externally.
Yeah, so externally, look, there's people that are just not going to like the police no matter what. Mm-hmm. And maybe they have a valid reason. Maybe one of their loved ones was in a situation where a police officer wasn't good to them. In years past, decades ago, there were some practices in some aspects of policing that were just bad.
Of course.
They were unfair. There were racist practices in the history, right? Mm-hmm. There are those national incidents that happen that are very, very bad. And I don't think anybody at our agency would shy away and say there are things that happen nationally and internationally that are leave a black eye on the profession. But if you look at the numbers, if you look at the statistics, you see that, I mean, here in Jacksonville alone, our officers go to more than 1 million calls a year.
Really?
1 million calls a year, right?
I didn't realize there's that many. Wow.
And then you think about how many are come out in a bad light, mm-hmm. or something of that nature, whether it's warranted or not, or if it's just the public opinion. So there's some people that, they were just kind of raised that way, right? Mm-hmm. Their grandparents hated police. Then their parents hated police. Or they live in a neighborhood that just hates the police.
It's a generational cycle
they've seen their parents get locked up. Or they've seen some crimes that haven't been solved, and they feel like that. And that's understandable. And I don't think that anybody can push back on decades and decades of how people feel about this.
Of course.
But I will tell you this, Connor, that I think that we win people over every day.
Yeah.
With just transparency, with building trust, As you said, split-second decisions, and those decisions can go one way or the other. And, imagine being a CEO or a CFO or anything else and having to make a decision in 1 second and half a second. Hey, here's the entire budget for this company. You have to make the decision right now.
Sign it, yes or no.
Yeah. And you can look at that at politics. I mean, they have to do these things very, very quickly. And everybody can Monday morning quarterback it.
Of course, what is it? Not memory, but looking back is 2020, right?
Yeah.
Say hindsight is 2020.
But you try to show the humans behind the badge. These are mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, coaches. These are people just like the rest of us, right? Mm-hmm. Like the officers, they come in, they don't want to hurt anybody. The bad officers get rooted out, especially in this administration.
Good.
Sheriff Waters or Undersheriff, the administration. I mean, if there's somebody that's doing bad things, they'll do everything they can to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. And I think that you win people over by showing that and saying, look, here you go. Here's the facts. Here's the answers to your questions. Mm-hmm. We're not going to shy away from that. And that's the media policy, too.
Of course.
Okay? Some politicians, some leaders would just shy away from talking to news reporters or anything like that. Or, no comment on that. Like,
Well, that's the thing I actually like about TK is I see his face frequently. And I don't have a problem with that. He's our sheriff. He should be, telling us kind of what's going on or what he's doing. I mean, one of his biggest statistics is he cut our murder rate by 50%, correct?
Yeah.
That's huge, because that was the thing that Jacksonville was known for a while. Unfortunately, that was one of the blemishes on our resume. But, I mean, in today's world, I feel like Jacksonville's definitely gotten a lot safer, personally, and things are being worked on, like, the homeless situation in a lot of ways. I see a lot more of that is cleaned up. People are being housed or, taken care of, whether it's like for the mental aspect or, drug-related issues and everything. I feel like Jacksonville has definitely cleaned up a lot better as a city as time has gone on, at least from when I was young and used to go downtown to the original Jag Stadium when it was, is it still Everbank, or whenever it was Everbank at the time?
It's back to Everbank.
Is it? It's switched a couple times now.
Everbank, TIAA Bank. It's Alltel Stadium for old guys like me.
Alltel, yeah. I was born in 99. I was around for some earlier.
Than you.
But no, it is amazing to see Jacksonville get bigger, and as you were saying, the growth of Jacksonville, right? The amount of things that are coming to downtown. Like, is it the Ritz-Carlton, I believe, is coming to downtown?
Four Seasons.
Pardon me. Yeah.
And right next to it is the big Jaguars Executive Complex, which should be open in a little more than a year.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be amazing to see what the stadium looks like in these next couple of years once everything is officially done. Being a Jaguar, I was like, I would say my generation of becoming a Jaguars fan was back in the day, like David Garrard, Maurice Jones-Drew still playing, Torrey Holt, like a good mix of players that we had going on there. And it's amazing to see. Even though we still haven't won the Super Bowl, there's still been a lot of memorable games I've gotten to. I had a chance to go to that Chargers game where we were down like 24-0 with like 4 picks.
Was that the really cold one?
Yes.
Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier.
I was freezing my
meeting.
tail off there.
Yeah. It was like super, super cold. I was DJing a wedding during that game.
Were you?
In St. Augustine, and I was so upset because, I took the wedding gig because nobody expected the Jags to have made it that far.
Yeah.
It was in January, right?
Yeah, it was I forgot exactly. It was the first round of playoffs, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so I wasn't used to the Jags playing in January, so I was like, sure, I'll get hired for that gig. And then the Jags kept moving on, and I was like, So we finished the wedding, and the whole wedding party, the bride and groom were huge Jags fans.
That's awesome.
The whole wedding party went next door, and we all watched it, and it was insane. So
that was the one time when people say there's like an energy in the air, like you can feel it, right? I was sitting there, and it was me and my wife. We were hanging out, and there was a Chargers fan in front of us, and he was talking trash every time. Like they threw an interception, but nothing aggressive. He was actually just playing around, being funny. And it got to the end of the game. We ended up winning, obviously, with that game-winning field goal. Me and him high-fived. We're like, that's probably one of the best games of football I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
To see a comeback like that, no one thought it was going to be the Jags. But to talk more about them, obviously, as well as what they mean to the city of Jacksonville. When the Jaguars are doing good, usually a lot of other things are doing good, at least from what I've seen. Going back more into your journalistic side of things, how did you really kind of get involved? Obviously, I saw, your degrees, say a couple in like communications. You have 2 master's degrees. Am I correct on that from what I was reading?
Only one.
Was it only one?
Only one.
Okay.
We'll see in the future.
Hey, respect to you for getting that master's degree.
One at the moment from UNF Swoop.
Hey, that's right.
And I got my initial communications experience at UF in Gainesville.
Go Gators. Yes, sir.
Go Gators. And man, it was a great place to go to school.
I believe it.
It was so awesome. I loved the journalism program there. I didn't want to graduate. I was like, oh, no, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
I did. To come to Jacksonville. So, I went to Paxton on the west side here in Jacksonville, and took a couple of electives, tried them out, ended up liking journalism. I actually did not like TV production then.
Really?
Which was funny. I did 1 semester of TV production, but I did journalism. I wrote for the paper. Maybe I'm a little bit nosy. Maybe. I could be called guilty of that. And enjoyed it. And just liked being in the know. And then I went to UF and started as a psychology/print journalism major.
Interesting.
Started to go through that, took a print journalism class, liked it, but kind of saw the writing on the wall, wrote for some newspapers and magazines, and then I saw the Gators playing on the football field, Florida field, and I was like, I saw the students with the cameras and the microphones. I was like, I'm going to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
And UF still is, and was at the time one of the most competitive journalism schools in the country. I think at the time we were saying like it was in the top 5, right?
Really? I didn't realize that.
So, there were some elite people going through that program that were like, oh, unless you've been in the TV world since you were 12 years old, or unless your parents are main anchors or whatever, like, good luck. Mm-hmm. And I remember just trying to get people to notice me. And I went to the dean of the college, and I was like, hey, where can I go? I want to volunteer in TV and be on the Gators. And he kind of chuckled and took me down to a public radio station on campus, WUFT-FM, and it was an NPR station, and it was like no windows, and it felt like you were walking back into the 80s, with the carpet on the walls and all these different things, and still reading newspapers and the old telephones and stuff. And I went in there, and the staff there, the team, took me under their wing, and I was a freshman, and they were just like, okay, come on in, let's schedule you. We'll figure it out. And then Governor Charlie Crist was making an appearance in Gainesville, and they wanted to ask him about potential education cuts that would affect higher ed. And I guess the student reporter that they sent out, for whatever reason, the recording didn't record. We all know. I mean,
I've been there. I've been there before.
Right? You
yeah,
can't
100%.
ever judge. Like, everybody's got a bad day. I don't know the backstory behind it. Something didn't happen. So they basically give me the keys to this old hatchback and this tape recorder thing that I'd never used. And they're like, hey, can you go find the governor? Imagine now trying to track down the governor.
Could not
with
imagine.
like his motorcade and security detail and press people and this and that. It was a little different back then, and with that governor. So it's Charlie Crist, and I drove around campus and somehow found him, and it
was that easy. He just drove around and found him.
I think I had some sort of loose schedule or something like that, but somehow I was able to find where he was and just kind of walked next to him in the press detail. And I was like, "Can I get an interview with you?" And the people were like, "No, he can't." And Governor Crist was gracious enough to say, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to stop, but talk to me, ask me your questions while you're walking." And so I did, right in front of Florida Field, and I asked him the questions, and then it was on the front page of the paper, the Gainesville Sun. And
that's cool.
And got the questions back and rushed them back, and the tape went to the editor at the radio station. They put it on the air, and it made the public radio news. And
that's cool.
That was when the bug bit me. They say the journalism bug bites you, and I just absolutely loved working in public radio and public media. From there, I was trying to get my way into TV, and there was a time when it was the end of the semester and everybody was going to the end of the year Christmas party, but there was still a game that was going on that they wanted us to shoot, and I didn't know how to work the big cameras, the big shoulder cameras, but I was like, I'll do it. I don't want to go to the party. I don't think I was invited, for the record. I was a sophomore then. So I don't think I was invited.
Gotcha.
But I was like, I'll do it. And they're like, oh, well, you got to go through training and this and that. But there was a great guy there that, Jeremiah, sports director, that was like, no, man, just give me 15 minutes. I'll teach you the basics. So I got to do that, go shoot Gator basketball.
That's sweet. Yeah.
And record that and sit right under the hoop. And
that's so freaking cool.
It made the highlights.
Oh, you were in the highlights?
I wasn't. My footage was.
Really?
Yeah, my footage was.
Wow.
On the PBS station there, which was a sportscast. And it was just incredible.
That is.
And you got to work your way up, so you got to shoot all these other sports, and track and field, and shot put, and javelin, and swimming, and this and that. And then eventually you get basketball and football if you prove yourself.
You put your 10,000 hours in, kind of thing.
About that, yeah. and the full circle thing was at the end, my senior year, I was chosen to be the sports director. So
wow.
I got to travel with the Gators. I got to go all over, and it was just an absolute dream.
I believe it. What was like a notable player at the school at the time? Anybody memorable?
I don't know if you've heard of him. Tim Tebow?
Yeah, I've heard. I wish I met him, but yeah.
Percy Harvin, the Pouncey twins.
So you were there during the heyday, where everybody wanted to be there, and you brought up the sportscasting and stuff. There was a lot of people that work at ESPN now there at that current time as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Laura Rutledge.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Laura McKeeman, and she's a friend, and I actually trained her. She came to UF, and I had the opportunity to have her on the sports team when I was sports director, and I was just like, she's going places. I remember we went with the team to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, and everybody else was going out on Bourbon Street and this and that. And she's like, "Nope, I'm staying in. I got to study the roster and this and that." And I was like, "Okay." It paid off for her. She's done very well.
Yeah.
And Christina Pink. There was
that was the time to be at Florida with all those names. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild.
See, Percy Harvin, obviously Tim Tebow. I know he didn't do too much in the NFL, but that was the absolute time to be at UF.
Was awesome to watch.
Yeah, Tebow mania and everything was crazy.
Just the whole team. I mean, the offense, the defense, everybody. Joe Hayden. I mean, I could just go on and on and on and on.
A bunch of Hall of Famers.
Casey, who lives here in the Jacksonville area.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then basketball was great too. So
was that time of Joakim Noah and all them there? Yeah.
Al Horford.
Shout out. I'm a Celtics fan, by the way. So
Corey Brewer.
Corey Brewer.
So that was really incredible. And I actually had the opportunity to cover a Super Bowl too. And that was another thing with just luck.
Wow.
Where I was freelancing for ABC News National, and my grandparents lived in Miami, and the Super Bowl was in Miami. And like a week before, they needed some more people, and I guess they couldn't get anybody from New York. And I was making $7 an hour, $8 an hour, and they didn't have any more hotels because obviously it's a Super Bowl. And they're like, they're looking for somebody in Florida that's going to work for cheap, that's going to shoot this content, but we don't have a place to put them, this and that. And I was like, my grandparents live like 40 minutes from the stadium. I'll go there. They didn't even have Wi-Fi back at the time, so we were like literally leaning on hotels, stealing their Wi-Fi at the nice hotels.
That's awesome.
To be able to do it. But I shot some footage that was on Good Morning America.
Really?
And World News Tonight, and for Robin Roberts, and got to interview some incredible people and meet some awesome people.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
And it was incredible. And that helped me, in my opinion, get my job at Channel 4 because I had interned there. I interned at the Florida Times-Union my between freshman and senior year, or freshman and sophomore year, and then sophomore and junior and senior year, I interned at Channel 4.
Oh, wow.
And had just this amazing intern coordinator, Sharon Siegel-Cohen, God rest her soul. She passed away. But she was just wonderful and just kind of believed in us and built us up. So I had that opportunity, and it kept being, you're too young to work at Channel 4. You're too young, because back then, you had to have worked in a couple markets before. And I bamboozled my way in there by, I couldn't reach the news director at the time. Yeah. And she had a glass office. So I made friends with some of the people that worked in the bullpen, the reporter bullpen. And I'd be like, is she in the office? Is she in the office? So they would tell me she was in the office. Yeah. And then I'd ring her office phone. And I was like, hey, it's spring break. I just got back from the Super Bowl. I've got this tape. Can you just look at it and critique it? Because she was like, you're too young to be a reporter here. So I got my foot in the door. And I showed it to her. You bring a tape.
Yeah.
You bring a tape back then, and that's how you get your job.
That's crazy.
And she was like, this is really good. I like this. I like this. I like this. And then she took me upstairs to meet the general manager. And he's the vice president of Graham Media. I mean, it's a good spot, right?
Big deal, yeah.
And we pop it in his office, and we watch, and then I think like a week or two later, they call back like, we've got an opportunity. It's like late nights and weekends and holidays, and it doesn't really pay, and this and that. And I was like, I had just gotten into grad school. And I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't you want to talk to your family, this and that? I was like, no, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And from there, I picked up and moved back to Jacksonville with this opportunity where I was answering phones and logging tapes and tuning in live trucks and taking feeds and talking to the authorities and stuff on the weekends. And then some days I'd work day shift and then morning shift and then night shift and this and that, and moved back in with my parents. And
I love the grind. I love hearing it. You literally started
very small, very small salary, which is a lot of people don't know. But you really got to start off. And back then in TV, I mean, it was still part of the heyday in news, right? It's very different now. But, it was like, okay, well, if you don't want this job for this salary, there's 200 more people that do.
Sometimes you have to bite the bullet.
You couldn't negotiate. You couldn't negotiate. You're just like, okay, I'll take it. But I was fortunate, my family lived in town. My brother had just shipped off to college, so it was good, a little swap-a-roo.
There you go.
He went to Gainesville. I came back from Gainesville, so we were able to just cross paths with that and had that job, and the rest is history. I just loved journalism and loved the community and loved telling stories and loved stories that made an impact, too.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to be a talking head. I didn't want to be somebody that just was well-known but didn't do stuff. Like, I wanted to work. Mm-hmm. And, now he's the chief meteorologist. But Richard Nunn, his wife, told me, go out there, make some connections with these nonprofits, and do what you can. That's the best way to get involved with your community and to, get stories. So I would, when all the big names, the famous names were not available to MC these events or make these appearances, I would. And they'd be like, who are you? I'd show up. I was this 22-year-old skinny kid, and they were like, who are you? Like, until eventually, you make enough connections and you just do that sweat and that grunt work, and you just get out there. And, I mean, I've shaken tens of thousands of hands. And
your network is your net worth.
A few people that maybe wanted to shake my hand, and a lot of people that are like, who is this guy and why is he trying to talk to me? But you got to get out of your comfort zone, and your network is your net worth. And this community as a whole, Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia, has been so incredibly generous and kind. And journalism's a scary field. It's competitive. Sometimes your colleagues want you to not necessarily do well. It's very cutthroat, and the industry as a whole is. And then you have this community that embraces you, including your flaws and your screw-ups. And you build trust. But you don't build trust necessarily just being on TV. You build trust going to the community barbecues, going to the events, going to the funerals, going to these prayer vigils, and just meeting people and giving out your number to everybody. As crazy as it is, the phone might ring off the hook, but just being accessible.
Of course.
And I am just so grateful for a community that allowed it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that it would be the same in New York or LA or even Miami or Orlando.
Yeah.
Right? But, Jax is a down-home, generally friendly community. And I'd always say, here's my number.
Yeah.
My only phone number. And call me if you need anything.
Yeah.
And people did. And then they would pass it on and this and that. And
I think that's a beautiful way of doing it.
That was community journalism.
Yeah.
And it's investing. And, you see so many journalists that you're like, you want to shake them because they come in and they try to be some star, and they don't go out to community events, and they don't volunteer their time, and they just, they go out of town, or they're not investing in the people that are in their community.
Exactly.
And if you're not a part of the community, why report on it?
No, I definitely agree. I mean, everything that you see here are like local community artists and people I've had on the show and everything. And as you were saying, like that blood or that sweat equity, right? Getting out there. Whenever I first started this podcast, no one knew who I was. I was like known around Jacksonville with like friends and playing sports and stuff. But to really start, I don't know if I would consider myself a journalist, but I consider myself more of a storyteller, right?
Yeah.
We've sat down with, business owners, everybody from mom and pop shops to people I was telling you earlier. Obviously it's awesome to sit down with some bigger names, but to really sit down and talk to people who are in different pockets of Jacksonville, right? I would say Jacksonville has like a bunch of boroughs, kind of, with the different kinds of ethnicities that we have here, the different kinds of, growing up. It's very interesting to learn everybody's story that someone lives 30 miles away from you had a completely different lifestyle growing up than what I did. And really going out there and hearing these stories, getting out there and getting involved in the community is a huge thing. This guy right here, his name's John Hawkins. He does great paintings. He's a veteran here in Jacksonville, and he's done a couple art shows, and he actually opened my mind to going into art, going in there and listening to what people talk about, how they describe their art, how they, can get involved in that. Julian Gasca painted those, the Air Force Ones right there.
I like those a lot.
He hand painted the logo, everything. Wow. He's a local artist here in Jacksonville as well. And that was the big thing for me is like, whenever I started the podcast is like, one, I like being involved in the community, from being in charity, Dreams Come True Foundation,
Incredible.
I'm really big on going out there and telling real stories, right? Not everything is your highlight reel that you see on social media. We've had people like, we're one of our sponsors for the podcast, shout out BetterHelp. They're big on men talking, right? That's something I've talked a lot about. Grew up with, bad depression growing up, wasn't very much of a talker about my feelings, and started getting around the community, hearing some real stories where, there was death or, loss from a family member, and seeing people get that vulnerable made me feel more confident in myself being vulnerable. And really kind of going out there and telling the real stories of what's going on in life. Obviously, with what you've done, you've traveled the world, seeing the different kinds of stories that you're going in, or you're in the helicopter or going around. Yep. Is there a favorite, story that you've had a chance to go and tell, or is there a favorite place that you've gotten to travel to that you never thought you would have been able to travel to?
So with stories to tell, I think it's the stories around hurricanes and natural disasters, because the worst of the scenarios bring out the best in people. I was always the first to raise my hand when there was a hurricane. Ask our meteorologists or my old bosses, right? If there was the tiniest little thing that could have spun up into something tropical, I was ready to go. Like I was packing my boots and ready to go. And, I had my photographers that were, some of my best friends, and just, hey, you ready? Yeah. My photographer, Chris O'Rourke, great guy. You got to get him on here. He's still at Channel 4, and man, we had some adventures together, like some pretty dangerous situations.
I believe it.
Roofs getting ripped off, flooding, tree limbs coming down, all kinds of lightning, tornadoes nearby. Not that I ever want to see that destruction, but fact of the matter, it is, right?
It happens every year. Right? Yeah, we're
in Florida. It's going to happen. But to see how people help neighbors, help strangers, give the clothes off their back, their house might be ripped down, but they've got a fridge full of food. They give that out. Somebody else might have a house, and they'll take them in. It's wild. And, I've seen that all up and down Florida. Saw that in Houston when I went over there to help a sister station for my former station, the Bahamas. Puerto Rico is an incredible place, and the people there are incredible. And it's just like, for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, the politics stop, right? You stop worrying about who you voted for, who you care about, what religion you are, what your background is, this and that. And the humanity really grows. And I just loved that. Plus, it was like cool, like riding with the National Guard.
I believe it, yeah.
And, being in the Bahamas, I got dropped off because there was only room for one person. So I had to leave my photographer behind, and he got onto a different plane that ended up in like a different island and went back to Florida that day. And I ended up having to spend a couple days. Yeah, spent a couple days in the Bahamas, and like primitive, like everything was gone, no power, no water, no fresh food. And you just hop on the back of these old trucks that have been smashed up, and you get by, right? And you give people whatever you have in your backpack, and they give you whatever they have in their backpack, and you try to bring in those supplies. And you see people that have just lost everything materialistically, but they have each other, they have their pets, they have their lives, and they're there. And they're like, that storm passes and they're rebuilding. They're cleaning up and they're rebuilding. And we've seen that all over. And honestly, that's one of the hardest things that I had to let go of when I switched careers. And it's still something where it's like, I want to be here. I want to be telling these stories. Because we were able to, one time we found 40 people that were stranded in the Bahamas in a helicopter. Just because I was flying passenger in the helicopter, and I told the pilot, hey, what's that over there? This was in the Abacos of the Bahamas. And they were able to find them and come back and bring them food and supplies and rescue them. And they were all under debris, like 40 people.
Really?
Yeah, they were undocumented Haitians.
Okay.
That they were like kind of scared to leave, and they were really, really remote. And I think they were hiding from the government, right?
Yeah.
From the Bahamian government. And we were able to, at the very least, bring them supplies, and then flew back and brought them supplies again, and like found out that they were getting through it.
Yeah.
And just raising awareness and keeping people posted. Or on the other hand is to warn people, to say, hey, look, you might live in Jacksonville and you might think that every storm passes us and we get off scot-free.
We're just lucky. Lucky.
We're lucky. But, go to other parts. Go to Fort Myers. Go to Fort Myers Beach. Go to Santenello. Go to, Steinhatchee or Cedar Key, and you can see what can happen. Mm-hmm. And that could happen here anytime.
Very true.
It could happen this hurricane season. And I hope to God that it doesn't, but you just never know. So at the very least, you can show that, and you can tell the horror stories about the people that clung onto trees for 12 hours and would have never done that again. Or sadly, I've seen bodies. Mm-hmm. I saw a body after Hurricane Ian. This was in Fort Myers Beach. It was a woman that was like wrapped around a tree.
Really?
Trying to hold on to it. And she didn't heed the warnings to get out. Some people would, I would agree that the warnings didn't come out fast enough, but it is what it is. She had about 24 hours. I don't know what her personal factors were to staying, but a lot of people died there. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing bodies under tarps and her wrapped around the tree. And I mean, just to think about like what she went through, that was frightening, and that's horrible, and that's traumatizing. And you tell people this is the worst case scenario, right? Like you don't think it, Mm-hmm. You could go 150 miles an hour on 95 and make it home 9 times.
But that 10th
time,
yep.
And I think as a news reporter, and now with my position at the sheriff's office, like you see when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Like in both jobs, I've seen death and destruction. Mm-hmm. More than most people.
How do you compartmentalize that? Because obviously to the normal person, right, unfortunately in today's world with social media, we do see a lot of things that really not everybody should be seeing.
Yeah.
With seeing that in person, how do you kind of, you see that, you go home, and how do you kind of work through that for it to not eat you up on certain things like that?
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it affects you. Sometimes you are really devastated for the family. Mine has been to get involved with the families.
Okay.
I have the privilege of being on the Tristan Bailey Foundation. I have the privilege of being friends with a lot of family members who've lost loved ones, and to be able to give back to some of these organizations that help them, and the victims advocates, and the relief groups. Obviously you can only do so much, and you can preach prevention. I tried to do that in news, and we definitely try to do that at JSO, right? Mm-hmm. Like we always warn people about the dangers of drunk driving and, every other danger out there that is controllable. Mm-hmm. But I actually do find healing sometimes in reaching out and connecting and, going to a baseball game, going to a dinner, going to an event with some of these people that lost their loved ones, because in my opinion, it's harder to go and cover this and then just leave and just know that they're just grieving. Mm-hmm. It's easier to kind of, and some families don't want you to, but the families that do want you to be part of the process. I find that easier.
Yeah.
It's still incredibly difficult. It's heartbreaking, but you know that even if it's the tiniest little thing, you can make their day a little bit better in their darkest time. And I feel like it's a blessing to have those opportunities. And, I did it early on with getting involved with the Justice Coalition and, Tristan Bailey Foundation, so many other things, big supporter of the Bridegan Foundation and the Jordan Davis Foundation. Mm-hmm. And, his parents, he was killed in 2017 at a Southside gas station.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, over loud music.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
I think it was 2012, I'm sorry.
No, I do remember that story now. Yeah.
Yeah, 17-year-old. And
wow.
His mom and dad have both used that tragedy for good. And I think that when you see people that do use something for good. I covered the mass shootings. I went down to Parkland. I went to Pulse. Been out to Tallahassee. Been
some of our darkest hours.
I covered the mass shooting at the Jacksonville landing.
Really?
And
the landing, I haven't even thought about the landing in a long time.
Yeah.
That's a throwback right there.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? It's hard to see that, but you can't change it. Mm-hmm. all you can do is be there for the people that want you to be there.
And I feel like by telling the stories, it is something that you can teach what can be done next time.
Sure.
Or also keeping the memory alive of a person, right? That's the hardest thing. I feel like that's what a lot of us as human beings are scared of, is being forgotten. And I think that's the best way to keep the memory alive, is by talking about that person. Obviously, even if it is a tragic situation, still talking about the good times, still talking about who they were as a person. I feel like that's one of the best ways to honor someone who may have passed in such a tragic situation like that.
For a lot of families, I have a young man that's become a friend of mine. His father was killed in the line of duty. And, we've been going to the gym together. And that's what he used to do with his dad.
That's cool.
That was their thing. His dad could lift a lot more. But, there's nothing that I can do to bring back his dad. But, you can fill in some of those moments,
of course,
to keep the memory alive.
And that's a lot of things that a lot of men in this world need nowadays, is a positive male role model. Sure. There's a lot of people out there who, unfortunately, as for a circumstance like that, or maybe their father's not around in their life, and having that one positive person that's trying to lead them in a way, or, I'm sure that's huge for him. So that's amazing that you do that. And like I said, seeing everything that you're involved in, I was reading and reading and reading. I was just like, how? Like, it's amazing, to be honest with you. I did
quite tired.
I believe it. And you have a family of your own? Are you married, children, anything like that?
Not married, no children.
Okay.
I've got 3.5 nieces and nephews.
There you go. Keep you busy.
One more's coming. Brother, sister, parents are great.
That's good.
So, hope to have kids someday. But
I understand.
I think among other things, maybe I'm difficult with my schedule and everything, right?
Yeah.
Leaving early, coming home late. But, and then my side businesses and things like that.
Speaking of your side business, I would like to get into that a little bit, if that's all right.
Yeah, I think I've spent a little bit too much time on work, and that's what I'm trying to do now is to find a healthier balance, because both careers, my current career and the other one, they require 24/7 access, and you can't just turn off.
Yeah,
and it's a balancing act.
What are, besides obviously I can see everything that you're interested in, but say if you had a day off, right? What's a perfect day off like for you? What would be stuff that you do? Are you like into golfing? Are you more just like relax and veg out on the couch, watch a good show? Like what's your off time look like?
Anything water related.
Okay.
Boating, kayaking.
I like it.
Swimming, live music. That kind of stuff.
I like it.
I don't really veg out.
I can believe it from everything that we've been talking about tonight.
Just too much of my mind's always running and this and that. I don't like to just sit idly. I should. I think I need to build that in, but
I'm kind of the same way. For me, that's why I fill up my time. Just seems like you do as well. Like besides this, like me and my father own a promotional products business.
Okay.
The podcast, and then I work my normal 9 to 5, whatever you want to call it. But it's for that specific reason. I'm not like a sitter. The only time the longest time you probably see me sitting is when I'm editing a podcast for a couple hours, getting the video.
But you're doing something. You're being productive there.
Yeah, but it's still just sitting. I am a movement guy, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think everybody's wired differently, and obviously the way you're wired, you like to get up. Seems like you like to learn new stories very frequently. Obviously, getting out in the community. What would you say is one of your biggest things that maybe you've implemented, or even TK Waters has implemented for you guys to get, more into the community, more trustworthiness, really like what was a good breakthrough for you guys to start getting that trust back in the community?
So body cam's been huge.
Oh yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
And for a long time, it was primarily just released before I came over there, and before him, just retroactively, like if there was an incident or something like that. Now it's put it out there regularly.
Oh, okay.
Including the good, the rescues, the good when you show humanity helping out. Doing ride-alongs, going out with our officers, building our video production, putting that all out there on social media for the world to see, and inviting in people from all over to see it for themselves. Tommy G. Peter Santenello.
I saw him too.
Huge following. That, as of now, that video got 5.9 million views. We got flooded with positive emails and messages. And
it's awesome.
People saying that they wanted to move to Jacksonville because they respected what law enforcement was doing, what sheriff was doing. We put something out this past weekend about churches getting involved with programs to help people get out of violence and crime. And, we put that out in 24 new churches now.
That's amazing.
Involved. That's what our pastor told me this morning.
Wow.
24, from a single post. And just being able to do that. And another big thing is telling our own story, right? Telling our own story. We don't need to rely on outlets anymore to tell a story and then, get frustrated if it's not the way that we see it.
Understandable.
We can put it out there and you can hear it from the horse's mouth. You're still welcome to, get it from a news station or whatever and get their take. But if you want to see it from us, you can see it from us. And we put it out there. We put our briefings on. We stream them live, including the ones that are about things that we don't love.
Yeah.
An officer's been arrested, an investigation. Somebody's been removed from their duties. Nobody wants to do that. That's not fun.
But that shows transparency.
It shows transparency. Yeah. And it shows, hey, look, we hold people accountable. We hold the community accountable. We hold our own accountable. And that's huge with the sheriff and his administration. And, it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun, especially when you know them. You know the people that you're doing the news conference on.
Yeah.
But you do it because it's the right thing to do. And so many people don't trust the government and they don't trust the police and they don't know what's going on. And the old days of just saying, it's top secret. You don't need to know, they just don't work anymore. Mm-hmm. I think with social media, with everybody having access to everything at their fingertips, you've got to be able to meet people where they are. You've got to be able to show them some of it. You can't give them top secret,
of course,
confidential information. You got to follow the law. But for the most part, if we can give it to them, we'll give it to them.
Yeah.
And instead of us waiting for somebody to ask to find out about it, we're proactively putting it out there. And that's huge. And, in the past year or so, we've had on some platforms more than a 300% growth in engagement.
Wow.
And, on YouTube, we more than tripled our subscriber base.
I believe it, yeah.
We're looking at 6-figure growth in followers.
Wow.
Across platforms in just the past year. And we've got a lot more work to do. And, you can never stop, right? Mm-hmm. We're posting now we post on Saturday and Sunday in the morning, at night, as things happen, on holidays, because we want to be the go-to. We want, hey, if you want to know what's going on with crime or public safety in this community, come to JSO.
I follow the page. I check. I'm always kind of looking around, seeing what's going on.
Come to us because, you're going to hear it from us, and we're going to do everything we can to verify it. And we're going to keep the opinions and this and that. I mean, we had a traffic stop downtown where there were a lot of officers with rifles. They took a guy down at gunpoint. And one of the popular Instagram accounts in the city put oh, look at what JSO does for routine traffic stops or something like that.
Of course.
You want to know the backstory? The guy told his neighbors reportedly that he was going to kill him.
Oh.
And had 2 long guns, including an AR-15. And, was running around and threatening. And our officers were able to go and stop him a couple blocks away. Who knows what he could have done?
Very true.
It could have been anything.
But they don't want to report that.
Right?
They don't want to say that.
Who knows? And these officers were able, you gotta take down a guy at gunpoint when he's got those kind of weapons. But guess what? They didn't hurt him. They took him into custody. And all of a sudden the internet, JSO is the worst and this and that. Well, look at the real story here.
Exactly.
And we've got a lot of cases that the internet will say one thing and somebody will say one thing and it's completely the opposite, and
you can fight the good fight. It's really what it is.
Yeah.
And as you said, you're not going to stop someone's opinions on that side of things. And, unfortunately, people have had different involvements. People have seen different things, as you were saying, different neighborhoods, or they saw their dad get locked up or everything. Sure. But at the end of the day, as you were saying, you never know what that guy was capable of. And I believe that's something I saw in the Tommy G video as well. TK Waters was talking about proactive policing, correct? That's a newer thing that he's more implemented in his side of things here, correct?
Sure. Yeah. He doesn't want to see officers sitting and waiting for calls. If they're not on a call, go out there and look.
Okay.
Go out there and do traffic stops. Patrol, do investigations, contact people.
Is JSO considered understaffed at all in any way?
There's challenges everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I'm not. This isn't a con. I'm just saying.
There's challenges everywhere. I think staffing is good. Our recruiting numbers are really good right now.
That's good.
But obviously people retire and people move. So you have to constantly replace people and train people and not just people. Like, you've got to find the right people that are responsible, that are good decision makers, that are worthy of carrying a gun and a badge and handcuffs. I don't have the exact numbers.
I understand.
On the top of my head, but certainly it's something that we're always trying to attract good talent, right? Like, we don't want police officers; we want the best police officers, right? Maybe it's selfish, but in the whole country, we want the best.
I like it.
To patrol. This is where our families live, right? Like, we live in Duval County. Like, why would we not want the best? And we train them, and it's hard. It's hard to be a police officer nowadays. I mean, imagine all the things going on, all the people that hate you and they don't even know you, people putting cameras in your face, people threatening you, this and that. You're trying to do your job and they say, I'm going to sue you, or this and that.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's burning out. Not to mention, I mean, these are, sometimes 22, 23-year-old kids getting out of the academy, and they have to see things that they've never seen before, right? Mental illness, death, destruction, extreme violence, and you've got somebody that's fairly young in life that all of a sudden gets thrown into that.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who is in JFRD, and I talk to him frequently because just see what's going on around Jacksonville, and what he describes to me, I'm like, wow. Yeah. And I've the same
firefighters see it. They're right there hand in hand.
Yeah.
Whatever the police see, the firefighters see. Whatever the firefighters see, the police see. And it could be easy to get jaded, right? And to see people as not necessarily good and this and that. But you got to find the good in people,
of course.
And there's good people in bad situations, and there's good people that make bad decisions. And there are just some bad people. The bad people need to be locked up and just taken away.
I agree.
Some people are not rehabable, but some people are.
Yeah. It just depends on the person and what they're willing to do.
Yeah.
So to switch off to another subject, I did want to talk about your other career for a moment here.
Okay.
So tell me about, DJing, all that stuff. Obviously, I brought up that you've worked with Rance Adams. Shout out Rance. Yeah, shout out to the buddy. He's been on here before.
I love Rance.
And, I've seen that side of you as well. I feel like that's where a lot more of the light kind of comes into play.
Sure,
You're there having a good time, trying to keep a party going. So tell me all about that, the name of your company, all that good stuff.
DJ, MC, auctioneer. It's technically Micolucci Entertainment, but a lot of people call me DJ Vic Mic.
I like it.
That's my working name.
I like it.
If you want to go back to the legalities, it's Micolucci Entertainment. So I've had it since I was about 12.
Really?
Well, some sort of DJing, business. And my dad played in a band growing up. He still plays every once in a while with his friends that are, still active in the band.
Good for him.
And I played in a band growing up. I tried piano and guitar and drums, and quite frankly, I wasn't very good, or it just didn't click with me. But I loved the wiring and the cables and the speakers and rigging things up and this and that. So I'd play with his old stuff from like the 70s and the 80s, and then he would play some gigs, and I'd play in the breaks, right? Just put on some music during the breaks, and I don't know, I was just infatuated with music and sound and production and showmanship, and even though I was shy, I still loved that part. So I started DJing for free in backyards, and then my aunt let me DJ a birthday party for like $20. It was gracious of her, And then, I would do my school dances for like $20.
That's cool. Okay.
And, every $20 I got, I'd go to the pawn shop. My parents would drive me to the pawn shop, and I'd buy a little something else, this and that, and save it up. And then, $20 became $50 and $100 and this and that. And built it up where I was DJing a lot in high school, kind of let it fall by the wayside a little bit in college, and then came back in Jax, and again, I was starting that career and didn't make a lot of money with it, and had the opportunity to do some gigs, and every time I and I just invested it back, and to eventually getting what I now would call a very high end system, and probably done over 300 weddings.
Wow,
a couple hundred other events. I've got other DJs that work with me. So Rance is one of them.
Yep.
I've got DJ Caceres, Sean Specie, a few other guys over the years.
That's really cool.
So now people come to me, and sometimes I'm like a DJ booker or a broker because I can't be in multiple places at once. So there'll be times when like my company will have 3 gigs going on at the same time, right? Like Rance is doing one, Caceres is doing one, or Sean's doing one, then I'm doing one. And then I MC charity events, and
that's awesome.
Do some auctioneering and this and that, and been able to raise well over $1 million, at these charity events.
Wow, good for you.
Over the years, but probably much more. But definitely there in the 7 figures, and it's fun. It's an outlet. It's a way to vent. It's a way to connect, and there's sort of a high. When you're vibing and the crowd's vibing and you're just all in one, and all of a sudden everything else, for the most part, shuts down.
Yeah.
Right? All the other stresses, all the other things, the concerns and this and that. Like when you're in that moment, you're on the turntables or you're on the microphone and people are engaged and they're having fun and you're bringing smiles to them, like you're contributing to good mental health, to happiness, to memories, all these things. And I love being able to do that.
That's awesome.
Being able to do that. So now where I am in my career and my age, I'm like, I should hang it up, but I don't want to because one, I've worked so hard to build it. I mean, all this sweat equity. You're looking at 25 years now that I've been doing it, and been building this business. It's like hard to give it up. So I'm trying to do fewer, give more off to my guys, but I don't want to hang it up. Like I still like doing it.
I understand.
I did the firefighter party a couple weeks ago. It was insane.
That's cool. I bet that was a rowdy.
Ask your buddy.
Yeah, I'm gonna
ask your buddy.
TJ, let me know.
Firefighter parties are rowdy.
I believe it.
They're rowdier than police parties.
Oh, that's a line in the sand right there.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm willing. I don't know if I'm willing to cross that one.
They're definitely rowdier.
That's hilarious.
And you do a wedding and then you become friends with that couple.
Of course.
And, there's couples that I did their wedding like 10, 12 years ago, and you still keep in touch. And,
I've had my videographer. I've had our photographers on my podcast here. We had them on like a week or two after our wedding, and we were just talking about the day. It's crazy how that stuff works.
Yeah. It's special. I mean, it's a rare opportunity, and it's very stressful, right? When you have a 200-person wedding that people spent a lot of money on. People came from all across the country or sometimes the world. Like, you have to get it right. And it's high pressure, but then, when you're done and you turn it all off and you get that kudos, and the bride and groom or the client are like, that was incredible.
That's awesome.
Gosh, everybody was talking about how great that was. It's, you made it. It's like, okay, this is why I do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're hauling gear and you're bringing all these cables and this and that. And you're dealing with grumpy other vendors because there's a lot of them. You're like, oh, why am I doing this? Like, is it even worth it? Like, why am I still doing this? And then you make people happy.
Yeah.
And you end it on a good note, and you're like, this is what it's all about. And you can't let a couple people bring you down either. It's a big life lesson, right? Like, you got 100 people in a room, not everybody's going to like what you're doing. But if you can get most of them happy,
that's all you can. That's all you can ask. Right? You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
No.
As long as you're a couples.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing, man. Like I said, it's been very interesting sitting down and talking with you, man. I know you made a joke about being a little bit older than me. You're only 10 years older than me, and the amount of stuff that you've accomplished, and I can hear the vigor in your voice and how much all this means to you. I love the energy that you put into it. You looking back into your stories of, talking about the hurricanes, going out and talking on the news, and really just, making each step, a major opportunity for you. Yeah. You never said no to an opportunity that may have seemed small, but it turned into something bigger, obviously, where you're sitting now. Just saying yes, taking that opportunity is huge. And that's something I am. Like, sure. I'm the same way when it comes to that. Even though it may not fit exactly what I want to do, it's still an opportunity to go out there and meet people and learn something new. I didn't go to trade school. This is all stuff that's been self-taught when it comes to the HVAC side and pest control. And even this, it's all about trying things. I think that's the one thing that stops a lot of people is the what if. What if I don't make it? What if I, don't do this? Or what if I don't get 1 million followers on social media? I'm not a successful person, right?
Yeah, who cares?
Exactly. That's the main thing. Yeah. It's all about starting. I think it's paralysis by analysis, is people are always worried about the what if rather than just starting it and see where it goes.
And the big thing is to be you, right?
Of course.
Like to stick to who you are. And, I got those questions. Oh, you're going to the cop shop, or, oh, you're going to be propaganda.
Oh, God.
Some people call it propaganda. I was like, I've got the same journalistic ethics, right? I've got the same things. I know more now, right? I can see behind the scenes.
Of course.
I know all this and that, but like, I haven't worked this hard to give people false information, right? Or to mislead people. Like, I always, and that was a huge thing in journalism with the whole fake news stuff. I was like, I don't know what other people do or this and that. I mean, I do know what other people do, but I was like, if it comes from me, like, it's been vetted, my opinions are out of it, and it's put out there, fair and objectively and honestly and ethically and this and that. And, that's the best that you can do. And that's what you need in journalists, right? Like, everybody's got their own beliefs, right?
Of course.
I can look at a news story and believe one thing or the other, but it's not to influence people. If you want to influence people, be a lobbyist or be a politician or do something like that. And I think we go by the same thing at JSO. We're here to tell stories. We're here to highlight stories. We are here to build bonds and to show people our side of it. And, if you disagree, that's okay. It's a free country. So it makes this country great. We had protests this weekend, right? And I was just in L.A. actually for all the protests. I was not part of the protest, but I was in the same city at the same time
during the time
for other reasons. And there's all kinds of things going on there. And here in Jacksonville, we were just talking with the sheriff. We were just please be peaceful. Say what you want. Demonstrate. Hold your signs. Don't hurt anybody. Don't damage any property.
Exactly.
Don't block any roads. Don't fight the police. Please be peaceful. And guess what? 0 arrests. I mean,
really?
We had probably 3,000 people out this past weekend.
That's good. That's really good.
0 arrests related to the protests.
That's really good.
Still other arrests in Jacksonville.
Oh, of course. But, yeah.
But I think that's something that we're proud of.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously we had a lot of resources there. But we can be proud that the city was peaceful and was lawful, and that you can believe one thing, I can believe another thing, but we can have a conversation.
Exactly.
You can vote for one person, I can vote for another person, but we can still share a meal. And it's like, hey, Connor's got a different reason why he believes this, and that's fine, and I've got my reasons why I believe this, and that's fine too, right? And I respect it. And it's not good if everybody just believes the same thing.
That's what makes us human, is as we were talking about life experiences, going through things, and there's nothing wrong with disagreeing. You may, like we were saying, voted for a different person, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like the thing that's being lost is to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that's kind of come from. It's partly the younger generation, and then some of the older generation just wanted to yell and all that. But I feel like those are the most meaningful things. That's why podcasts have gotten to the point of where they are now, is people can sit down for 3 hours or however long. If you're on a Rogan podcast or something else, you can sit there for an hour and just talk. you don't have to believe what the other person's believing, but you guys can sit there and be able to form your opinion better off the other side. And, I've gained things that way through sitting down. I don't agree with everybody's opinion that sits in the chair, but the show's not about me. The show's about the person and being able to put their stuff out there, what they believe in. And I'm really more here just to mediate, put questions out there, and hear more about it. So I think the art of conversation, being able to have a peaceful conversation, even though you might not agree on everything, is a very, to be honest, it's a more intellectual conversation than anything.
Sure.
So
and more intelligent people know how to sit down and talk about it, even if they're vastly different from somebody else, and that's that emotional intelligence, and that's great. And I think that's what we're losing. You go on social media and people hate each other so much, and a lot of times they're keyboard warriors. But it's like, why do you have so much hate for this person? Like, why don't you just let this person live their life? And I think that's something that comes with maturing for some people. Like, it's like, don't get worked up over other people.
Yeah.
Stop being so concerned. And
I think it goes as the saying goes, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And, the world's not all about any of us.
Very true. We're not the main characters.
No. I mean, and, some people think that they are, but you're pushing through with 7+ billion other people.
I agree.
And try to leave it as a positive impact and as a better place.
That's my goal. My goal is to leave something here, and like through doing the podcast, I always tell my wife, I'm like, even if this doesn't turn into anything huge, it's still an audio diary that my kids can hear over 300 hours almost of me talking about life situations, us getting married, and people who I've gotten to sit down with. And I've actually very thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
It's amazing everything that you do. And like I said, I hope, continued success. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today on your very busy.
I'll try not to bump the microphone.
Oh, you're good. So anytime it's someone's first time on the podcast, I do always leave with one final question for you. Okay. And the final question is, do you feel successful? And if you do or do not, in what ways?
I feel like I'm a work in progress.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that answer.
I've had successes. I've had failures. I have a lot more that I want to do. And I'm not to a point where I'm like comfortable, and so I'm a work in progress. I feel like been able to do some good things. Feel like there's a lot more that I can do. And hashtag always improving.
I like it.
Right? Like I can improve, and you don't have to turn everything around every day, but you get a little bit better every day with everything, right? With work, with family matters, with friendships, with your health, with your mental health, with your community involvement, right? Do everything better. Like if you're standing on an escalator, you're going to go down. You got to keep walking. You got to keep moving, and you got to keep doing it. And I'm gonna keep doing it.
I like it
with whatever I'm blessed to have the opportunity to do with. And now it's I have the privilege of having a comms team and serving this community. And I think success would be making sure that each and every one of them is successful in what they're doing in their messaging. And I think that's what you learn too is, as I'm learning more about leadership and getting more opportunities and getting, more people to work with, it's that good leadership is building up other people. And it's not about you. Like you're a small piece to the puzzle and you want to build these people up. So it's championing other people. With my DJs, making them have the best opportunities possible so that they can be the best possible DJs.
Of course.
To give the best possible experience for our clients. For the people that I work with, on my comms team, giving them the tools that they need to succeed. I hired a great manager who I used to work with, and seeing her succeed, seeing her grow and build her confidence and and people loving what she's doing is great. Yeah. That makes me happy.
I believe it.
Right? And credit where credit is due. People be like, oh, you did a great job on this. I'm like, I'll be honest, I did like this much on that. I might have had the vision or something like that, but these are the people that brought it to life.
They made it happen.
Yeah, they made it happen. And, I think that there's a world, especially in, communications and media and TV, there's like me. And you'll work with people, you'll come across a lot of people that it's just, they want it to be only them.
Yeah.
And they don't want to give any credit to anybody around them. And you see that there's a lot of people that are needed to make success, and you got to build that team. And if you do have the blessing of having a team, right? Like I started at JSO with just me, and then I've been able to grow and acquire team members. If you have that blessing, like invest in them, and support them, and celebrate their victories, because their victories are the team's victories. The team's victories benefit the community.
Exactly. I think that was a beautiful answer.
Right?
I really like that.
Kind of convoluted.
It was very eloquent, in my personal opinion.
Here and there, but I did just come from like a leadership class too.
I like it. Get a little test on it today too.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and I think that's what Sheriff does so well, right? Like he's not out there posing with the SWAT team.
Oh yeah.
Like some sheriffs do.
There are some interesting sheriffs in Florida. I've seen it. Yeah.
He is putting the right people in place in the right areas to be successful.
Yeah. I would say, in my personal opinion, this is mine, obviously, I think what TK has done is amazing in Jacksonville.
Yeah. And
to go from what we were. Oh, yeah. I believe it.
Big plans. I mean, you keep building on it.
TK, let me know. I'll be more than happy to come sit down and have a conversation with you as well.
You should, but you'd have to go to his office.
That's fine.
He doesn't do house calls.
I can understand that. I can understand that. A lot of people, they're like, originally when I first started doing the podcast, I would go to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's just, after a while, it got a little cumbersome.
Cool.
Made life a little easier.
I like the vibe here. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah. A lot of people are like, where is your studio at? I'm like, it's in my home.
It's great, man. Look, you can, you don't have any commute.
Hey, makes life easier.
I've got to drive home tonight.
I understand.
You get to roll right to your bedroom.
That's right.
No, it's nice.
But no, like I said, thank you so much for your time today. I would love to have you on again. If you guys ever have any time in the future, feel free to shoot me a message. I'd be more than happy to have you on. But before I let you go today, what should people go and follow, whether it's on social media, what should they check out to see what's going on in the JSO or the community, all that good stuff?
Sure. So we're Jacksonville Sheriff's Office on Facebook, Jax Sheriff, JAX, SHERIFF. On Instagram, on YouTube. Nextdoor is a great thing.
True.
Yeah. We reach a lot of people there. We're on Twitter, or X, as you call it. We're working on some newsletters.
Nice.
A podcast, not as good as yours, but we're going to work on it.
I'll listen to it. Yeah. I like it.
Oh, you can come on it.
If you ever need a guest, more than happy to.
So at the end of the day, it's about reaching people where they are. And we're going to do everything we can. That not everybody wants to hear what we're doing, and some people are just like can tune it out, and that's fine. But we want to make sure that everybody that wants it has access. Also, jacksheriff.org.
There we go.
So we have a transparency page where you can watch real-time stats on traffic crashes.
Oh, wow.
On calls, on murders, on violent crime, all that stuff we put out there just publicly for the world to see.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And other places, and being in the news for so long, sometimes you'd have to public records request it and this and that. We just put it out there.
Nice.
And, we've got some great people behind the scenes that make that happen. So that's a big one. That's a great way to connect with us.
Perfect. I'll make sure everything that he just listed off there will be put in the description so you guys can go check out all this good stuff. Even if you don't live in Jacksonville, check us out. It may be your next city that you want to move to. It's the city that's on the up and up, whether it's through media, sports, safety-wise. There's a lot of place. It's an amazing place.
So I'll tell you this. I'll leave you with this.
Perfect.
So I know you like the Tommy G videos. I know you like the Peter Santenello. We had a guy named Nick Off Duty that came up too from Miami.
Okay.
That was another cool one. He was actually the first guy to shoot with us.
That's really cool.
For these big partnerships. We're going to be on Cops.
Really?
Right? So season 38.
There we go.
I was just meeting with the president of that company, the production company, and the executive producer. And we've got a Turkish TV channel, Turkish YouTube channel.
Interesting.
With like more than 6 million subscribers.
Wow.
And they DM'd me on Instagram, one of their producers on my personal Instagram. And they're like, hey, we saw what you guys are putting out. We want to come. So they're coming in a couple weeks.
That's really freaking cool.
You know, not sure what's gonna transpire, but we are gonna show them around and let them see what we do and let them see what policing in America is. So we have the opportunity to show the world, potentially millions of people around the world, how we police here in Jacksonville.
That's freaking awesome, man.
I'm excited for that.
I'm excited to see that too.
I'm always a little nervous, you know, and it's a long process and certainly a lot of work, but we're open to collaborating.
Yeah,
we're open doors, and at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's not my agency, it's not the sheriff's agency, it's the people's agency.
I agree.
You know, and we all work for the people, and we're all using, you know, taxpayer money to the best of our ability to make this a safer, happier, healthier place. So,
and I believe it.
That's why we open things up.
And I love the communication side of it. You know, it's good to have, you know, the faces out here in the community. But the way I was able to get to sit down with you today was through social media. You happened to respond back to me, and
I was very slow.
It's okay.
Very bad. Sorry, I owed you, but I just...
There's nothing to be sorry about.
Scheduling is something.
And at the end of the day, we made it happen.
Yeah, we did.
That's all that matters. Well, my last time, I do want to say thank you so much for giving me your time today. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I would like to, like I said, make it a yearly thing. If you're ever interested, I'd be more than happy to have you come back on. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Connor.
Of course. Well, guys, make sure you guys go give him a follow on all the social media. Go check out JSO's page. Like I said, everything will be linked in the description. And while you guys are there, hit the subscribe button for your buddy. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow on all of our social media. It's going to be at Who Are You Pod from everything from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all the normal spots. And check out the YouTube channel. And finally, if you feel like you'd be a good fit for the show, you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, an artist, police officer, really a mix of anything, you feel like you'd be a good fit, shoot me an email to me, whoareyoupod@yahoo.com, and maybe we'll have you guys on a future episode. But as I say every single week, y'all, thank you so much for checking us out, and we'll see you guys next week.